I am the one receiving the gift of sitting with you and you all. I want to invite you before we start, maybe to go in gallery view and to just look at all the faces. And I'm doing this right now. I'm just looking at all the faces of humans and Jews who got together at the same time in their lives, from different time zones, from different places in life, from so many different places, right? Geographically, symbolically, emotionally, biologically. And we all decided to get together at the same time, 183 people. How beautiful. Can you imagine 183 people gathering together, not for Black Friday, not to try to, give $1 and get something, but to give themselves to the present. That's what meditation is about. It's an opportunity that we have to give to ourselves, the gift of presence, to give to Hashem, to God, to the divine, the gift of our presence, to give to the world, the gift of our presence. And the beautiful thing about it is that when we give this gift, we receive so much, so much. So friends, let's sit for a couple of minutes of quieting before we go into our learning today. I want to invite you to check that your body is seated in a way that feels very comfortable and very supportive of your wakefulness, of a presence of dignity, of ease, of openness. And so at this point, if you need to do any last adjustments as we prepare to enter together into stillness. And as Mark reminded us, if you need to close any device, now is a good time to close a door, a window, to open a window, to get a shawl. Anything you need to do to really prepare the kli, the vessel, for your stillness. And if you're with us through recording, this is the same invitation for you in this moment to mamash lehagdish, to sanctify this moment. This moment is unique and you make it precious, you make it count. Friends, we're sitting together in the first Monday of the month of Elul. I just want to invite awareness of that. The month of Tshuva, the month of returning to the source of aliveness within us, into the divine. And if it helps you stay present during the meditation, feel free to place a hand on your chest and a hand on your belly. For some of us, it's a very grounding practice. So let's practice grounding ourselves in Elul, in this precious month. Starting by grounding ourselves in our body, in our breath. Maybe you want to take a deeper in-breath right now. And a longer out breath. Maybe through the mouth. Maybe a couple of times like this. Deeper breaths, just grounding ourselves. 100% of my attention right now on this breath. A couple of more grounding breaths. Imagining your brain is coming down in your nose, in your chest, in your belly, following each movement of the breath through your body. We'll stick together a beautiful breath in and out. I'm getting a message that it's hard to hear me. Is it better like this? Okay. So I'm going to share my my screen with a little teaching I wanted to share with you, friends, today. It's a teaching from the Mira, a Hasidic master I love, and I've been spending the year with him, learning Parashat HaShavua each week with a wonderful group. And Jet has just put it in the chat if you need it. But I'm also just, oops, slicha, I want to close this. How do I close this? Voilà. Alors, it's on this week's Parashat Kitetse. And it's on a specific kind of instruction that we have in this parasha when we build a new house. So, kitivnei bait chadash v'asita ma'aka legagecha. When you build a new house, you have to make a parapet, a kind of fence, protective fence for your roof. And the pshat is very simple, is that so that there is no innocent blood shed in your house from an accident, chas v'shalom lo alenu. So it's talking about precaution. And the Mira is taking it in a very, very, very deep interpretation, going into something that touches right to the heart of meditation. And I was preparing today this this source sheet for my weekly Parashat HaShavua, which is tomorrow. And then I saw this, and I was like, I have to share this with the IGS community. I have to share this with you. So this is just a small excerpt of his teaching. His teaching is quite intricate. He takes a long detour to go there. And so we're not going to go there now. I just want to go straight to where it speaks to us and to our practice. So there is no apparent connection between this and our pasuk, the opening verse. Okay. Just want to make it this clear. Listen, friends, and you can even close your eyes if you want. He's saying something that is just so beautiful. V'hainu al yadei sheshotek. When we become silent, when we shut up in a beautiful way, sheshotek, lishtok, becoming silence. V'mekabel et haba alav. when he becomes silent and welcomes, mikabel, all that comes to him. This is what we do when we sit, right? We become quiet and we just welcome all that comes to us. Thoughts, emotions, physical sensations, sounds also from the outside, right? We don't meditate in a vacuum. We all have an environment, right? And everything belongs. Everything is part of the meditation. And then he's quoting this pasuk from Echa, Yachil v'domem, which is a way of saying to wait patiently. And Yidom is one of the words for silence. And he will be silent. Umale et machshavato, and he raises his thoughts. And I'm going to change the gender because it's a masculine gender as it is in this kind of patriarchal context. But when one raises their thoughts, when we raise our thoughts towards the divine through dom lashem, which here is translated, this is a Sefaria translation, be still before the divine. So dumya is a form of silence and a form of stillness. It's both, the sheket also. And he's explaining what does it mean, perush, sheyale et hadumya, that he will raise the silence, to elevate the silence. And elevating the silence is elevating our thoughts. Dehainu hamachshava. Elevating the silence is elevating what's in us, what's happening in our experience towards the divine. And that is one of the kind of characteristics, if you will, in my view, of Jewish meditation. That when we're quietly sitting, we're not just observing our thoughts, we're also elevating what is within us towards the divine. We're going back to our source, which is the divine. Right? The Maharal of Prague tells us that we are an upside down tree, that human beings are upside down trees, that our roots are above with the divine. And so elevating, raising our thoughts is the same, is the deeper meaning of raising our silence towards the divine. Is like we're connecting what's within us to God, to the source of life. We're not pushing it away. We're not denying it. We're just connecting it to something higher. ואז יפלו חללים, and then the empty ones will fall. That's my translation. כי הדינים תפלים על ידי דבקות. We're talking about דבקות, embracing, cleaving. דבקות מחשבתו, of our thoughts towards the divine. And you know, this is a parasha that was read usually around the month of Elul. And we're in the month of Elul. We're in the month of Tshuva. And this is a time where we're preparing for Yom Hadin, the Day of Judgment, which is Rosh Hashanah. And I see here a kind of allusion to it. Hadinim, the judgments will be we will make kind of neutral, will be neutralized through our dvikut. So that's another way of doing tshuva, is to raise our thoughts, to elevate our thoughts, to elevate our silence towards the divine and become cleaving, embracing the divine. So that's what I want to invite us to do, friends. That's the practice I want to invite us to do. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We're going to sit quietly. I'm going to guide for a few minutes, and then I will invite us to really enjoy the silence. So coming back to closing our eyes, coming back to this breath. You know, really settling in our silence. מקבל את כל הבא עלינו, and receiving everything that comes to us. This is how we elevate our silence. This is how we elevate our thoughts. We don't need to make an effort to rise up. All we need to do is to welcome all that comes to us. First, by welcoming this breath, which can help us stay present and grounded. Welcoming anything, perhaps impatience, drowsiness, boredom, space, delight, all the different qualities of experience we can have when we sit. And if we want, we can play this little game almost, that every time we notice we drifted away from presence, which is very, very natural. Every time we notice, we can notice where we were, the types of thoughts, memories, or the drowsing or anything. And we can just say, Ani mekabelet, I welcome. I welcome all that comes to me. The whole practice is coming back. It's really the movement of tshuva, coming back to presence, back to noticing, back to welcoming. And if you feel that there is any contraction in your jaw or your shoulders or anywhere, welcome it and then soften. You can invite a smile, even invisible. Meditation doesn't have to be so serious. It's just this beautiful practice of welcoming, this beautiful silence. And 217 beautiful souls sitting together in silence and stillness, offering, giving the gift of their presence to themselves, to God, to life, to each other, and to the world that really, really needs silence, really needs an elevated silence. Raising up our silence, raising up our thoughts towards the one. I want to invite you to send a kavana in your heart and in the world so that the world can raise up. And let's take a beautiful breath in and out. Thanking ourselves for our beautiful practice today and getting ready for the blessing of hearing the shofar today before Kaddish.
Thank you so much, Rabbah, Mira. And friends, let's both stay in that place, beautiful place to which Mira has guided us. Invite you to just stay sitting and let's listen to that spiritual tuning fork of the universe, the sound of the shofar, which we listened to during the month of Elul. And once again, many thanks to Rabbi Mira Neshama Weil for leading us so beautifully, putting in the chat a few links to Rabbi Mira's offerings, including a Yom Kippur retreat for those of you who might be in Israel. And we seal this beautiful practice for Parsha Ki Tetzei, the week of Ki Tetzei, and this week of Elul, by offering an opportunity for those of you who are in mourning or observing a yard site, or if it's your custom to join in the mourners Kaddish, to do so. And if you're not reciting Kaddish, please stay present for those who are. You can put the name or names of those you're honoring, remembering today in the chat now. And if you're reciting the Kaddish, I invite you to join me by rising in body and spirit to recite the words together. You can unmute at this time. Yikadao, Shme Rabbah, Alma, Tifrach, Katie, Lifra, Kayekon, Kaye, the call Beit Israel, Ba'agala, Zman Tariv, Nimru, Yehi, Shme, Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yipa'al, V'yipamam, V'yipeh, V'yitata, V'yiteleh, V'yitpalal, Shemei Kedusha, La'ela, Mikol, Birchata, V'shirata, Zechata, V'nechemata, Ba'aliran, Ba'alma, Turu, Yehi, Shlama, Rabba, Min Shemayim, Yiradin, Israel, Beru, Amen. Oseh Shalom B'Ramah, V'yaseh Shalom Aleinu, V'al Yisrael, V'al Yoshvei Tevel, Beru, Amen.
Amen.
Friends, thank you so much for joining us today. Thanks to our teacher, Rabbi Dr. Mira Neshama Weil, for leading us as always so beautifully today. I'm looking forward to exploring the teaching and the practice. Of course, you're welcome to continue to sit with us, use this time and this space and this container for continued practice, or put your reflections and questions in the chat. If it's a question, please preface it by writing question in all caps. Thanks to Alice Lockman, by the way, for putting a link to a virtual Shmira for the victims of the fires in Maui. Thank you so much for that, Alice. And if you're leaving us now, we hope you'll join us tomorrow. We'll be meeting each day this week at our usual time. Okay, Mira, once again, it's a very beautiful teaching. This is it's like a slice of rich, very, very delicious, rich chocolate cake. It feels like it's so much wisdom packed into a little tiny piece here. And I just thought it would be helpful maybe for us to begin by defining some of these terms, that some people may not be familiar with. First of all, dveikut, which is an interesting, it's a dveikut, which literally means adhering or cleaving, like being flush, connected to. Dveikut, the modern Hebrew word for glue is debek, so it's sticking. We just might say spiritual stickiness, I guess, might be a way to translate it. Can you describe what that is and how you use it in Jewish meditation? What is and how does that relate to the practice? Are we practicing dveikut? Is that part of what we're doing here?
Very much in Hasidic meditation, Kabbalistic meditation also. First of all, I just want to say you're starting with the easy questions because dveikut, I'm gonna say kind of on one leg, but it's something that sages have been writing about for millennia. And I think your question is actually very important because it's part of the concepts that we use all the time, and we don't always take a moment to think, what is it? Are we doing it? So thank you. As you said rightly, in modern Hebrew, it's like literally glue or tape, right? So it's like this movement. And I would say what's interesting about the concept of dveikut is that it's both a movement, it's both a practice, and it's also the result of the practice, if you will. What characterizes Jewish meditation is two things. One, which is actually very close to mindfulness and other Buddhist-derived meditation practices, which is this idea that we're going to become one with the truth of the world by dissolving our egos. That's called bitul hayesh for us in Kabbalah and then in Chassidut. And one of the ways we do this is by deciding to cleave to the divine, by really connecting. And there are different ways that we connect to the divine. and different techniques of meditation for that. In this technique that he's describing, because it really is a meditation technique, it's much more than a teaching. It's saying, okay, you're going to welcome everything that comes. And welcoming everything that comes is a technology for elevating your thoughts, right? Instead of keeping my thoughts on this level, this is me and the world, this is what I think, these are judgment, instead of staying horizontal in a way, it becomes vertical, because when I welcome, I emulate a quality of the divine, which is, if you look at the tree of life, the sfirot, which are like the basic attributes of the divine, the lowest one, malchut, nobility, kingship, which by the way is a feminine quality of receptivity. Kabbalah is that quality. And the tradition of Kabbalah comes from this movement of saying, I'm not going to be in the do, I'm going to be in receptiveness.
And so presence, right?
Presence,
right.
Yeah. But exactly. And a presence that holds space. Avram, the quality of Avram, basically. That holds space and that welcomes unconditionally what is. And that welcoming is the way, by emulating this divine quality, so by imitating the divine, I cleave to the divine. The Me'orenaim talks a lot about this, and also Maimonides. This is a way that we cleave to the divine, that we do dvikut. And then when we do that, so that's the kind of practice. And then the consequence is that we find ourselves like this with the divine. And when we find ourselves like this with the divine, we don't need our egos anymore. They kind of dissolve by themselves because we're one with the source of light. So that would be a kind of, I hope it's clear enough.
So let's apply it. So that's, I think it's beautiful. It's a great, well, let's apply it to the teaching. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen and bring your source sheet up. But the other thing I'm going to do is put in the chat the verse from the book of Lamentations, Echa, which he is referencing here. Which is an amazing, such a great, I'm sorry. Here we go. There we go. Okay. Which is an amazing Jewish mindfulness verse, right? So, but it's even richer because he's using it connected with this verse about, which is seems like a very practical thing. When you build a new house, put a fence around the roof so that people don't fall off, right? That's the basic mitzvah here. But he's interpreting it. You teach here, you teach this, that the roof, that the parapet, the ma'akeh, right, that we're building here is not reacting to what's happening by being silent and accepting what comes. That is beautiful. How we're creating. I mean, you tell me. This is the Torah I'm getting from you. The mindfulness Torah I'm getting from you today is, well, we each can create a parapet within ourselves that will avoid, the damage of someone falling off the roof inadvertently, right? Protect ourselves against that danger. How do you do that? How do you create your own parapet internally? By cultivating our ability to, for dumia, for stillness, for silence, and waiting quietly. And then we're going to get to the elevating the thoughts part. But so the elevating the silence, what does that mean? Elevating the silence. How do you understand that?
First of all, I want to come back to what you said. You really got it, and it's really all to your merit, because there's a huge chunk that was missing, there's the missing link between the verse and where he's going.
Right.
But you got it, that this is defense. And I also want to say, if I wanted to translate that in mindfulness terms, I would say it's a non-reactivity. It's practicing non-reactivity.
Yes.
And then it takes us to equanimity. And in Jewish contemplative terms, it's what we call hishtavut or shivyon nefesh, which is a very important quality in the world of Chassidut and in the world of Musar. And Kitetse, the parasha starts with a kind of very famous episode of someone who goes out to war and brings a beautiful captive with them. And the practice is not to touch her for a while, not to do anything, and to let her space. So I think it's actually very connected to that, the kind of non-reactivity, the non-doing, and the meeting what is, which, by the way, she's invited to do also, because she's invited to mourn, where she's coming from. So that was just to kind of...
So just to put a point on that, the non-reactivity, what we're practicing in the meditation is noticing the reactive thoughts that come up, that, like the way you put it during the meditation, that lead us to drift away. There's something that comes up that drifts away. The ego comes in, usually, invariably, because we can't escape our ego, are those thoughts creep in and take us away from the dveikut of welcoming exactly what is happening in the moment. Because that's not so comfortable sometimes.
It's not. It takes a lot of courage to welcome things as they are.
Right.
And we're not running away. We're meeting. And I just want to. So Lori is asking, what is shivyon nefesh? So nefesh is the being, and shivyon is something that is equal. Shaveh is equal. So it's another term. It's one of the Hebrew terms for equanimity, if you will. It's a very important practice. And then you were asking what does it mean to raise the silence?
Right.
And he says it himself. He says raising the silence is the same thing as raising your thoughts, which basically means dvekut, in the sense of when I become one with the divine, there is something that, and my reading of it is this notion that my roots are above. We have a very vertical relationship with the divine in Judaism.
What do you mean by that? Can you say a little bit more about that? The verticality. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there are religions who are religions of the earth and of different gods, and many other. Our religion is very vertical. It's like Avinu Shebashamayim, our Father in the sky, and this notion that you have sky and humans and earth, and that the human being, and that's in one commentary. I'm forgetting who said that the ladder of Yaakov is us between earth and sky. So this kind of vertical movement.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a lot of in Kabbalah and in the Sfirot, this idea of shefa from above, like an idea of something that goes down from the divine towards the earth, and then something from us that goes up from us towards the divine, back to our roots up there, which is also what happens with the notion of elevating the sparks through our good actions or through our eating. So elevating the silence is basically another way. It's a geographical way of saying connecting to the divine.
Just to go back to that pasuk, that verse from Eicha, Tov v'yachil v'dumam l'tshuat Adonai. It is good to wait patiently until rescue is translated here as rescue, but salvation, redemption. So it's just a great nutshell description of the practice. We are practicing waiting patiently for connection and answer. Now, and then elevating that silence, which is the essence of that. This is a quite great question about if silence is so great, why do we interrupt the meditation? Why does the teacher come back into the silence and start speaking?
Did someone write that?
Yeah, which is a great question.
I love that. So first of all, I want to say I'm seeing great comments and questions, and unfortunately we can't address them all. There is one I want to address because I think it's important to not go into misunderstandings. Is the divine supposed to be literally above us? Thank God, no. This is a symbolic reading. The divine in Judaism has many, many faces, and actually one of the places of dwelling of the divine is within us. Okay, within us, and also this idea that God is everywhere. Einod milvado. So no, if we stay very, very literally vertical, that's Christianity, by the way. That's one reading that became. And so someone asked, because I can't see this question, if silence is so great, why is the teacher interrupting it? Is that the question?
Yes.
First of all, I like it. I think it's very important. I'll tell you why. Very simply. Because it's very difficult for many people to stay silent and stay present. So when you learn meditation, the teacher is here to remind you, to wake you up basically when you drifted away or when you're to point back to silence. So this is this paradox that the speech of the teacher is here to remind you to come back to silence. And usually the more you're advanced and the more you do advanced meditations, the less there is talking.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for mentioning that. And the other thing, maybe we should just end on this because I don't want to keep you, and we're a little bit over time here, but thank you so much for being so generous with this. In terms of, because I see there's a lot of interest or questions about the verticality, maybe one of the ways people can understand it is, I think what you're getting at here is a sense of transcendence, right? Of something, of being beyond, that we can explore the divine by going inward. But ultimately, that's not making us the divine. That is, we are become the conduit for touching something that is transcendent, which is maybe what you're describing. Like that is the dveikut, that's the cleaving, that's the becoming flush, where the ego melts away a little bit, and we experience ourselves as immersed in something much infinitely larger than ourselves.
Becoming a kli, as you are saying, is actually the goal of Jewish meditation. And in one word, that's what we call nevuah, prophecy. It's becoming a kli, and dveikut is the technical way by which we become that. Yeah.
Well, always a pleasure. Thank you so much, Mira. It was just wonderful. I'm just going to put the link in once more, just because I happen to have it handy. I want to thank Jet for holding our space today, and Sharon Dunoff for sponsoring our practice today, and loving memory of your dad, Saul. Yeah, Zichrono Livracha. And I don't have the link, but if people have it, so Mira, just putting a plug in for your teaching of the Meor Einayim for people who are interested. And Jet, if you happen to have the links handy, that'd be great if you could put it in. And also a morning set that Mira leads regularly. And boy, though I wish I could be there in the Golan for Yom Kippur.
I wish you were there.
I wish I was there too. But if you happen to be in Israel, or I'd like to make plans to be in Israel, there's going to be quite an amazing Yom Kippur retreat with Mira and Or Halev in the Golan. So we will hopefully all benefit from whatever happens there. All right,
I just want to note, because I've seen a lot of reactions, in such a short time, it's very difficult to talk about such important and complex concepts such as verticality and Christianity and etc. If we had an hour, we could really be more specific. So please don't take us too literally on one sentence, because everything is more complex and would have need unpacking. Just want to say.
That's okay, but it was good. It was beautiful.